On today's episode of the Gripe Session podcast, we welcome former New York Met catcher Mackey Sasser.
It's Gripe Session time with your host, George Wanaka.
It's about nothing.
Discussing everything from real estate, current events, a little bit of everything, and the annoying little things that just tick you off.
You can't handle the truth.
What? You didn't know?
Here's your host, George Wanaka.
Your ass better call somebody.
What's up, everybody? How are we doing today? Welcome to today's edition of the Gripe Session. And for those of you coming into this podcast for the first time, let me introduce myself. My name is George S. Wanaka. I am your host for today's episodes and festivities, if you will. And I just want to thank you for popping on. I am a local real estate agent right here in Staten Island, New York. I am a local realtor. I am also a local certified appraiser. I'm also a mortgage broker. I have this podcast. I have my own YouTube channel called Living in Staten Island. So if you got a couple minutes, do me a favor, go check those out. I really appreciate it. And that being said, we're going to get right into it today. Today, keeping with our trend of our coronavirus baseball theme, because we can't get out and do anything else, we are having another wonderful former Met. And again, this guy I also met during my times at Mets Fantasy Camp, as you've heard on this podcast previously. And this guy was one of the first people I met a few years ago when I started doing this. Definitely the salt of the earth. And he talks about a bunch of different things, including his issues with throwing. I know a lot of us were trying to figure out what the heck was going on with his throwing. So, I just want to thank Mackey for coming on today, for being willing to talk on this podcast. And with any further ado, I give you Mackey. What's up, everybody? Thank you for checking into today's episode of the Gripe Session podcast. And we have another special guest today. And again, going into that baseball theme of what we've been talking about, we've got former Mets new catcher Mackey Sasser. Mackey, what's going on?
Not a whole lot. How are y'all doing? You doing okay today?
We're all doing good. So Mac, why don't you, for the listeners that, obviously we get a lot of Mets fans that listen to the podcast, but for those people that don't know too much about you and about your career, why don't you give us a little bit of an idea of, how you got started with baseball and, how your progression went through the ranks?
Well, basically I started when I was really young. I started playing when I was 5 years old. I was probably more advanced than a lot of 6, 7, 8-year-olds at that time. And, back then we didn't have T-ball, so we pitched to one another. But I started when I was 5. I played all the way through the, city leagues and everything I could play through in Tallahassee, Florida. When I was getting ready to go to college, I didn't play high school baseball. I just played city league. So I kind of worked during my high school career. And so basically what I did was I moved to Dothan, Alabama, where I live now. When I was 18 years old, played in the city league here, got picked up by a junior college where I now coach and been here for 24 years. And played here 2 years. And what happened, I was Skip Bertman's very first pick at LSU when he moved from Miami to LSU as a baseball coach. Okay. And instead of going to school, I had a child at the time, so I decided to go ahead and sign pro ball with the San Francisco Giants in 1984. I played with them through 87 in the minor leagues, where I was their number 2 prospect behind Terry Mulholland. And when I've got, called up to the big leagues for a couple weeks that year, I played against the only team I played against, because Bob Brent was so hot. I played against Pittsburgh Pirates. When I got sent back down, this was in early July. The deadline for trades and everything's July 29th or 31st at that time. And I got traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates for Don Robinson. It was the Giants were in like the playoffs and thought they were going to be in the playoffs, so they needed a pitcher. And they chose me. So I went with those guys the rest of that year. And in spring training of 1988, that's the year that the Pirates were starting to uppercome. They had a young team. Mike LaBarria was behind the plate, and we lost our first baseman like a week left over in spring training, and we needed a first baseman. So they made a trade with the New York Mets for Randy Milligan for me and Tim Drummond. And
That's a
so
trivia question.
That's how I got with the Mets in 1988 spring training.
Cool. So talk about what it's like to play for a lot of the boys that I've coached before in baseball, and they may get snippets of the podcast here and there. Explain the difference of moving up progressions from level to level to level. Explain what that's like.
Well, the key, it's hard to explain for a younger kid to like at that age, because you're coming up playing, you're playing. Mm-hmm. The key is getting better each year, naturally. I've been coaching at the college level now for 24 years. So the key for those kids to be able to go on to Division I, maybe possibly pro ball, is the speed of the game. The key is being able to speed your game up and playing at that level of play. And, it becomes a mental thing, working on it and getting better and better and better. Some kids it comes natural, mm-hmm. but most kids have to work to get better. And, I've always said it's the speed of the game. People can't appreciate being on the field at the major league level because, they see it and they see balls hit hard, but they don't understand how hard it really is hit. It's just like junior college. It's coming off aluminum bats, and you got to be able to, you got to pick up the pace. Mm-hmm. And so basically what I work on with my players is picking up that pace. They wonder, well, why are you doing this so quick? That I'm getting you mentally prepared to play at the speed of the game. So it's about the speed of the game. And what happens is, starting, let's say, high school, what starts is I always played on a city team, and I got the high school ball. Well, I wasn't quite good enough to play on that high school team, even though I played throughout the city or done everything I had to do. Now you're getting where it's the best of the best of the best of the best of the best. And it's just, you have to stay with the speed of the game, and your skills have to be good to be able to keep playing. If you want to play in pro ball, you got to play and play and play, and your skills got to be good. Mm-hmm. So the key is, to me, you weed them out. And I hate to say it like that, but that's what happens. Kids figure out that they're not quite good enough to play at the next level. And that's where it happens, is at speed of the game.
Now, going back into where you said that you weed kids out and, they're not good enough to play at the next level. Is that a combination of talent and work ethic, or no work ethic, but they have the talent, or is it a mixture of
It's a mixture of all of it. There's a mixture of all of it. I've had to cut kids on my team this year. I cut 10. And I normally don't do that, but the coronavirus has really made a lot of different things, because I've already signed kids, and now I've got sophomores that were supposed to go on and play school, but they've already here, correct? They're going to get to come back for another year, where normally they wouldn't. So am I going to take the kid that's worked here hard for 2 years, or take the kid that has got some talent that didn't work hard? I'm going to take the kid that works hard, because he's going to teach my other players how to work. Mm-hmm. But it all molds together. There's kids that's more talented than other kids that don't ever go anywhere because they don't work hard. Mm-hmm. And there's kids that work hard and go somewhere. Now, I'll give you a perfect example. T.J. Rivera. He was the hardest working kid I had for 2 years. On his own, he worked for 2 hours. With me, he worked. And everything he did, he worked to get better. His skills wasn't better than some of the kids I had on that team that year. But he worked so hard and did what he had to do, because he had it in his heart. He was going to play Major League Baseball. He worked extra hard, extra time in the classroom, on the field. I'll take that guy over anybody. If he's an average guy, I'll take that guy over him, because it makes my job easier. Mm-hmm. But he worked himself into being a professional hitter, where some guys think they're already a professional hitter and don't want to work as hard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I appreciate that. Yeah, 'cause like I said, I've got a lot of these, kids that sometimes will watch the podcast, or let me watch the podcast. The podcast is audio, but I'll take these videos and put them up on YouTube as kind of like the video version of the podcast. Right. But a lot of them sometimes watch, and I try to explain to them, sometimes you guys ain't working hard enough. And they go, what do you mean? And I'm like, if you want to get that good, every level you've got to get, you got to work twice as hard as you did before just to, because now what happens is you go from little league to travel ball to all those other things. And, it starts weeding those other kids out. And to be the better of those other kids, you got to work twice as hard as you did before. So I'm glad that I kind of heard you say that. It kind of reinforces stuff that I've been telling the kids, and I never played ball, but at least not at that level. So let's kind of go into our national pastime, at least at this point right now. Obviously, we're dealing with things like, the coronavirus, and, we're all doing things around the house. Like you and I were talking earlier that, we're getting the honeydew list done. We're not going to have any, we're going to have a lot of honeydews left to do. But as far as baseball is concerned, what do you think we're coming back to at this point? Like, I've talked to some of the other guys from camp, some of the other coaches, and some have different feelings on what kind of goes on. What's Mackey's feeling as to where do you think we're coming back to at this point?
Well, I've talked to a few people. I've talked to people in the Mets organization just to see how they're doing in New York. And the key is this. I think that baseball will be back in July.
Okay.
I think they'll play a 100-game schedule, which I know that's what's supposed to happen. I've even talked to some umpires, major league umpires. I play golf with some of them. And the thing that's going to happen is what they're saying is they're going to play in their own stadiums. There's going to be 3 divisions, which, probably everybody's seen that already. East Coast, Central, West Coast. The playoffs are going to be extended, but they're going to play a 100-game schedule. And they're going to start in June like a spring training. July 1st to July 2nd is when they'll start that 100-game schedule. There are going to be some doubleheaders play. There's not going to be there's going to be very slim many days off. There's not going to be many at all. And what they're going to do is let them do what they have to do as a major leagues. And then they're going to fill a roster of probably one team, each team in the minor leagues that can fill a roster if somebody gets injured. And that's it. They're not going to have minor leagues.
They're not. So they're cutting that whole minor.
They're going to have one team.
Okay.
It'll probably be some of their 40-man roster players.
Sure.
Or someone they think that can help them down the road during that season, possibly. And that's it. And
so
and they'll be in spring training facilities.
Okay. So is that with people in stands, or is that without people in stands?
As of right now, that's without. No people in stands.
Okay.
Until things get, settled down. I do coach at a college, and I do get emails from the governor of Alabama and the governors of other places and people I know. And until we get it straightened out or have some way of knowing that no one's going to get sick, it's not going to happen.
Okay.
The NCAA is talking about football. They're saying football will go on. But, fans is what
make everything.
Filling the stadium is what bankrolls athletics in major colleges. So somehow it's going to happen. I can just tell you that.
So you actually led me into another question with that with the minor leagues. So with all of the stuff that was started to be talked about towards the beginning of the season, where they were looking to contract the minor leagues and do away with some teams and things of that nature, is from what you're hearing, is any of that stuff kind of on hold, or what does that mean now for the minor leagues if they're not going to have baseball?
Here's the problem with that. I mean, I don't think cutting some of the teams out that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure they can't cut out every team. They got to have developmental purposes.
Sure.
And the only problem with this going on right now with coronavirus is they're not going to get developed. They've got players that's not going to be developed this year. So what are they going to do? I'm hearing they're going to try to send as many as they can to winter ball or down to Mexico, down to Puerto Rico, down to places to be able to play to get the reps in.
Sure.
It's just like them cutting the draft. I know they're going to do 5 rounds, and I've got players off my team last year are going to be drafted. Are they going to go 5 rounds or 10 rounds? It's all about money, and even some of that money is going to be cut back. So, each and every day, just like me and you're sitting in our house and we're doing honeydews, we never do during the week, or I'm usually out playing ball. Well, everybody else is trying to think out and work out everything they're trying to do in their business and everything else. So it's day to day.
Kind of a work in progress, huh?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just you're trying to figure it all out because every time you get to one spot, well, there's another problem over here. You know what I'm saying? Because we've never been through this. I mean,
No.
college is going crazy right now.
Yeah. And some of the conversations I've been having with some people, I mean, that's a decision next year that my daughter's got to make because she's a junior in high school right now.
Right.
And my son's just getting ready to go into high school next year. And the whole conversation right now is people talking about, juniors and seniors in college, and they're talking about working remotely. Now the conversation centers around, are we paying the same tuition? Because now we're not getting that college experience of going away and doing that other kind of stuff. And it's like, this is going to open up, I think, Pandora's box for a lot of people and say, hey, what's going on here? So,
well, I mean, what I'm hearing from our state now, as far as Alabama and Auburn, all those schools, they are going to open up come fall. I'm hearing we're going to open up in fall. I can do kind of what I need to do because I'm on the back of the campus. I can go take care of my fields, or I can get out and do things, whatever I need to do. But
sure.
we're going online this summer, and faculty and staff is mandatory back June 15th. So that still leaves me 5 weeks to do honeydews. I might go back tomorrow. I don't know, but the students they're not allowed on campus until June 30th. And what our school is, we have a nursing school. So all the people that were supposed to graduate this year with their nursing degree, they still haven't finished their clinicals because they kicked them out of hospital, right at about middle of March, and won't let them back in to finish their clinicals. So we're backed up on all the stuff. But what I'm hearing is we're going to start school in Alabama in the fall. This is junior college and 4-year schools and high schools. I'm pretty sure that's what they're going to do. But we're going to start school in the fall, go to our classes, do everything we have to do. And if it's as bad, we can't predict the future, as we all know. But if it is bad as it was before, along with the flu, we will start online again. And in the spring, we may start online and be back on campus by March. That's what we're talking about. So the college experience, and I get the college experience. Kids sign up for what they sign up for. But, I'm hearing lawsuits now. Well, that's no reason to sue the college, not the college's fault. But the thing is, I get that, but we're in some times now we've never been in before, so everybody's trying to figure it out. But I think after this year, it should all get back to normal.
Yeah.
That's with athletics, with everything at the college level.
I mean, we're up here in New York right now, and I mean, literally, we're shut down. Like, I can get into my office and do back office stuff and do my honeydew stuff, but I can't even go on the golf course and play golf. And I walk, and I can't even do that.
I played yesterday.
Just rub it in, Mac. There's a bunch of people have been throwing now. Jersey across the bridges, their courses are open. So I'm kind of starting to think maybe I can go across the bridge and kind of do that. And a couple guys from camp were like, "Oh yeah, they went out and played today." And I'm like, "Yeah, you guys stink. That's okay. It's getting rubbed in my face a little bit here and there, but that's the one thing I'm like, at least I can go play golf. I can't do that."
That's right.
But anyways,
it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's like I said, I've told a bunch of people this, you got to take the positives from this, because we're always going 1,000 miles an hour, at least in my house. I'm dropping this one off at travel ball practice. I'm dropping this one off at dancing school. I got appointments. I got this, I got that. I got all these things. I'm looking around the house, go, yeah, you know what? I want to do this. And I kind of want to do that. And all right, I'm going to do this. And then days come and it's like, oh no, I'm going to go play golf today. It's like, oh, I'm going to go do this. And all of a sudden it's still not done. You go, damn, when am I going to do it? You got to get that bug. Now, forget about the bug. I got nothing else to do. I'm going to hit that. I'm going to hit it now. So between that and working out, but that's a whole nother process. But anyway, so Mac, talk a little bit about one of the things obviously that you're known for, and we've talked about it in camp and we've broken chops about it in camp a lot is sometimes when you had some issues throwing the baseball.
Right.
What did you kind of attribute that to? Did you ever kind of put a finger on it and kind of, now you might be able to look back and say, oh, it's probably this or it was probably that. What's the difference of not being able to figure it out then or vice versa?
Well, in 2005, actually, when I met my wife, I had to fly to New York.
Okay.
And I met with some guys. This was after my career was over.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just start back.
Yep.
Let's start where it happened.
Yeah.
I was in AAA ball with the San Francisco Giants right before I got called up, like a month before I got called up and traded to the Pirates.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Calgary, Canada, and it was like 30 degrees below zero, it seemed like, but it wasn't that cold. But it was still snowing a little bit, and I took a valve tip off my shoulder.
Okay.
I stayed in the game, and I started flipping the ball because it stiffened up on me. Well, the next day I didn't play because I couldn't lift my arm hardly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the day I go out after that, I was flipping the ball, couldn't get out of it. So that's where it started.
Oh,
so,
okay.
It kind of got worse and worse and worse. And then my coach throughout the minor league, I love him to death, Wendell Kim, coaching the big league some with the Giants, some other teams. God rest his soul. But he thought it would be a great idea to fine me every time I didn't throw the ball. Not realizing that mentally that was just screwing me more. And so he did that one day in front of the brass. The brass was in town to watch our team. And he did it, and it continued to get worse. And he just sit there and go, 10, that's 20, just all man on my own. I didn't realize, and at the point, I really didn't realize it was hurting me as bad as it was. But that's where it started.
Okay.
And then when I got traded to Pirates, I kind of got through it. I started working through it a little bit. It was still there, still noticeable, but it wasn't bad. And when I got with the Mets, I flipped the ball. I was throwing guys out, doing everything I had to do. And then the next thing that really set it off was when I got ran over at All-Star break in 1990 by Jim Presley in Atlanta. That's really where it really got bad, when I really hurt my ankle really bad.
Okay.
So in 2005, I met some doctors that kind of explained it to me.
Okay.
And really worked with me and worked with me personally, not with just the injury.
Mm-hmm.
I had $100,000 trying to do that, make a name for themselves. These guys work with me personally, and we're still good friends to today. Okay. And they got where I could throw batting practice and do a lot of things here at the college. So they really helped me, the mental side of it. But what they worked on was the brain. And what happens when you get so much trauma in your life, or so much trauma happens, it shuts down. And that's what happened. I shut down, and they kind of released it for me.
Okay.
And a friend of mine in Major League Baseball called me in 2005 and wanted me to meet with him. And that's how I got with them.
That's great. I never heard that end of the story. But I gotta be honest with you though. But a lot of people don't like to talk about things like that, where small, stupid things that they're kind of known for. But I'll never forget. Not this past year, but the previous year of fantasy camp, we were playing your team, and you were throwing the ball back to the pitcher, and you were throwing the ball hard, and I'm like, damn, now you do that now that you're retired? And when I'm batting an eye, you're like, if I could have done this, I would have made $3 to $5 million a year back then.
I cost myself millions of dollars.
I couldn't stop laughing at shortstop. I'm like,
there was a joke going around. Oh man, he's throwing it back. Mackey Sasser throwing it back for so and so. It must be rough. Yeah. And I think I did it for who did I do it for? Moore, Ed Moore. Remember? I don't know if that was him.
Yeah. No. It was Ed. Yeah, it was definitely Bobble. But I remember that, and I started laughing at shortstop, and I'm like, all right, well, listen, these guys are all good sports. Like, you can't go to fantasy camp and not expect to get your chops broken, which I've affectionately learned this year very well.
That's right.
But anyway, let's actually lead right into kind of in fantasy camp, because I've talked to a lot of the other coaches on this podcast over the last few weeks, since we've been doing this pandemic, and the podcast has kind of turned into a baseball podcast. Talk a little bit about, your experience at fantasy camp, and the question that I've asked everybody, so I'm definitely going to ask it of you as well, is, you're a guy that's made it where everybody, the boyhood dream, right?
Right.
What's it like to go from playing there in the boyhood dream to now coming and watching a bunch of us hacks that never got there, or depending on what various levels that people have played, come and play the game that you were able to play professionally? What's that like?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll lead into it. All right.
Sure.
I was about 4 years ago when I started doing fantasy camp. They'd asked me to do it, and I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. And I was kind of thinking retirement, because kids, I'm old school.
Mm-hmm.
and kids just didn't want to listen, or one thing led to another, entitlement, the whole 9 yards, and I was at the point where I was ready to just get out of ball. And I came to the camp, and the one thing that stood out to me was a bunch of old men, hacks, like you want to call yourself, would get injured, would break a leg, break a hand, hit in the eye, something would happen, and the next day they would show up to play as hard as they could play. So what y'all did for me, and I've never talked about this in camp really. What y'all did for me, you made me appreciate baseball again, if that makes sense. Because here's a game that you love so much, and a game I love so much when I played. You made me appreciate it because the way you went out and did what you did every day. You worked hard through it. You were in the trainer's room 1 minute, you're back out on the field. If you take a kid that broke a nail today, they'd be out 2 weeks and need to go to training. So it made me see what baseball really was like. But for me to come back to that each year is probably some of the best 2 weeks of my career, because I can come down there, I can jank with you, I can say what I want to say, we can all get along. I know who to rub the wrong. If I could say something to one guy, this guy I can't say something to. But it's all in fun. It's nothing to do, because you first of all, you gain relationships.
Yep.
You're working with guys you worked with when you played ball. We're recruiting you guys. It's a fantasy camp for us just as much as it is for you, because each year we have new guys coming in. The younger guys are trying to take over the older guys, and it's just a fun time just being with you guys, because that's what we do. Most guys are not there 2 weeks, so some of them are, but we do the exact same thing week 1 and week 2, and it's a long week, but we have fun doing it. We wouldn't go back, correct?
Yeah.
So it's a great time for me. I enjoy it.
I mean, it's funny because one of the new campers from this year, who were on a group chat, I have so many different group chats going with people from first year, people from second year, and then the cliques start to form, for lack of a better term. Right. And one of us, and I've called it Mets. People say it's MFC, which Mets Fantasy Camp, and I'm going, no, it's kind of like a family now. Like we all break each other's chops like ridiculously hard. This year I got a brunt of a lot of it, which you
got the sophomore blues is what I always say.
Yeah, I
have players like that. Have a great year, win all the awards, and next year you fall flat on your face sometimes.
Yeah, well,
you pick yourself right back up and you have to go.
That's it. I mean, to me, I brought a lot of it on because of the the video I put out initially, and it was kind of like, oh, I just gave bulletin board material. Like right after I did it, I'm like, oh, that probably wasn't the best thing. But the problem is I have so many friends back home. They go like, you didn't hit anything out. I'm like, no, I did. Like I should have waited till the end of camp. But I'm Polish. Right. So I don't, normal thinking doesn't apply with me at this point. So that's right. That's why it kind of goes that way. But again, if you can't have fun here or take getting your proverbial balls broken, it sometimes might not be the place for you, especially if you've ever played on a team. Everyone knows everybody picks on everybody else. That's what makes a family. That's what makes a team, et cetera, et cetera. So, Doug Dickey and you guys do such a great job down there. And we've shouted Doug Dickey out 100 different times in this podcast before, just because of the job that Doug does down there. So it's definitely appreciate you guys, all the work that you guys put into it. And, one of the things that I always talk about when it comes to fantasy camp is, obviously some people take it a lot more seriously than other people take it.
Right.
And I always go down there and I try to tell people, I'm like, dude, we're hacks. Like we suck, compared to our coaches, we stink. Enjoy this, have some fun. A couple of guys sometimes go, you're bringing beer to the field. And I go, I drank a beer before I came to the field. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. This is like, this is nothing but fun. This is what this is supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun. Anyway, what would you say if we've been talking now for a little bit here, if Mackey Sasser had a gripe, and I asked this question of everybody, and it doesn't have to be baseball related. It could be society. It could be anything. It could be you walk into the bagel store and as opposed to somebody giving $2, they put it on their debit card and it takes forever, and you just want to,
Right.
hand your money and go. What's the one thing that makes Mackey Sasser go, that just ticks me off? What's Mackey Sasser's one gripe that he has?
I'm not a perfectionist, but I like things done right.
Mhm.
When someone's coming to do my yard or doing something, I like it to look like I want it to like. Let's just say.
Mhm.
So when I get home, it's not done right. I'm gonna redo it. It's just me personally. I've always taken care of fields and do things, or even with my assistant coaches. I teach them how to cut the grass. I'm like, man, you just ruined our field. He's like, what? I said, you got to, when there's certain kind of grass, you got to cross cut, do things. And I have a hard time training somebody, especially when I've been doing it a long time, to
Mhm.
make it look like I want it to look. It'd be like me running a major league field, and if it didn't look perfect for me that night, I'm not going to be sleeping. And just little things like that get to me a little bit, if I come home and do something. And it shows, like when I ask my kids to do something, I have a hard time with them not doing like I want it to be done. So probably that's my one pet peeve, and I should try to forget it, but it's just hard for me to do. So, but I don't like standing in lines for a long period of time. You just said it. Really, people like we were playing golf yesterday.
Mhm.
Well, there's one guy in line in the front. He's got his card in the machine, and he's sitting there asking him all the questions. We got the Highlands golf courses in Alabama, Robert Trent Jones courses, and you can get certain deals. Well, there's 10 guys behind him. We got tee times, and he's sitting there asking about all the deals, which one he wants to pay, which one he wants. Well, he could have done that before he walked in. I'm sitting there biting a bit. Come on, dude, let's go, man. I got to hit some tee balls for it. Some balls on the driving range before I get out on the course. But that kind of stuff, you're right. It bugs me.
Okay. You said something earlier and it just hit me again. And the reason it hit me is because tonight The Last Dance is on, right? I don't know if you've been watching about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls and that kind of stuff. And the one thing I've been trying to do with my son is sitting down with him and watching, basketball is my opinion, the way basketball should be played. It's a man's game, not this, I breathe on you and, you get called a foul or you want to fight me. So one of the things that you had said was about some of the youngsters nowadays, they just take it like, oh, this, and you can't get into anybody, you can't bark at somebody, and you can't motivate some of these kids nowadays because everybody's got the not that this is a cause and effect, but these participation trophies, which I can't stand.
Right.
Everybody's entitled to something, and it's like this entitlement factor nowadays just makes me nuts.
Well, kids didn't come up as hard as we did.
Yeah.
From about probably 8 years ago, maybe 10, it started getting worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say something to a kid, and they believe every word I say. It's hard. A lot of coaches negative coaching, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You say negative things to try to motivate them to do the things that they need to do. Well, it's hard to do these days.
Yeah.
It's got to be the pat on the butt all the time, and the entire, oh man, you're great. They want to hear it. How great you are, but you're not really great.
No.
This is what you got to do to be great or be better. And they don't like to hear that no more. But it's hard to coach negatively if that makes sense to you. I go, you may say, oh, I did this. And I said, well, you ain't done it out here. Why don't you prove it out here or something?
Yeah.
Well, you need to say, hey, we need to get better to do it. So that kind of coaching is I've had to change a little bit. It's being negative to the kids. But you talking about Michael Jordan. I met Michael Jordan when I was in Fresno, California in 1985 when we signed Will Clark, our number one pick. Well, he happened to be coming from the Olympics with Will Clark, and they were sitting down and having a conversation. And I can remember this day when I met him. He told Will Clark, our lives are about to change. And this was him coming out of North Carolina and him coming out of Mississippi State. And sure did it change. We just never knew what Michael Jordan was going to be. But Will Clark was a hell of a ball player too.
Oh yeah.
And he went on, and I'm when I got traded to the Pirates, when I walked in the stadium right before game time, Michael Jordan was throwing out the first pitch, but he was throwing out a basketball. the day I walked in there. And I knew Michael. I hung out with Michael some. He was a really nice guy. And, he was a big golfer, back in what was it, 90, what year was that? 1995 when they had a lockout, Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I was roommates with Dave Swing, which managed a little bit in the big leagues. Well, Dave Swing was a scratch golfer, and him and Mike Jordan played every day. And let's just put it this way, I ate good every night. You know what I mean? If you pick that one up, Michael Jordan liked the bed a little bit.
Yeah.
But he was a big golfer. That's when he was playing ball down in Sarasota, and we were in Bradenton.
Yeah, I followed Michael Jordan, and I'm a
hands down the best player. Hands down.
Yeah.
He had to put up with more roughness and toughness, and some of the things he said, I could see him doing that too. I mean, he was.
Yeah. My thing with Jordan, at least for me, and why I just followed him, for his career. And again, being in New York, being a Chicago Bulls fan doesn't sometimes go over the right way. It's like, right. Oh, you're a front runner. Like I'm a Yankee fan, which I'm not. I still follow the Bulls to this day, even though we stink. But the reason, my whole thing with Michael Jordan was I followed him since he came out of college in '84. And the thing with him was, which kind of lit that spark within me at least, was, that having to rise above a mountain to become better, to keep pushing yourself and having that fire that says when somebody says you can't do something, you go, oh, really? So like my wife, it's funny. Somebody made a comment to me and my wife overheard it and says, oh, you can't do that, George. And my wife in the background went, oh, shit. Just like that, because she knows if somebody tells me I can't do it, I'm going to work, I'm going to do whatever I can. And I take all of that from him, and just some watching video of and hearing about some of the articles of how he was. And I sit back and I go, that's that mentality, that drive it's the same kind of thing that I have. So I'm nowhere near the kind of player and athlete that Michael Jordan is. Let me say that abundantly clear. But that's kind of where my drive is kind of patterned, kind of after that a little bit.
Right.
But anyway, well, Mac, we definitely appreciate having you on the podcast today. Definitely, hopefully look forward to seeing you again in January at camp again. And
That's right.
The funny part about camp is I always tell people every year, the best part about camp is trying to figure out, okay, I was supposed to be one and done. It's like when you sit at the dinner at night and you go, all right, how can I come back next year and I get away with it? So that's the question that I asked the first year, which we came back this year, and that's the same question I asked, which I'm coming back again next year. So anyway.
Well, the key is this. Just remember this. All the guys down there are big leaguers, ex-big leaguers.
Yep.
And some guys that wasn't ex-big leaguers but are still coaches down there and does everything.
Yeah.
My dream came true for me. Since I was a young boy, my dream came true.
Sure.
So our job is for us to come down there, for you to enjoy your week and have a great time. Just like Doug Dickey works his butt off to make sure you enjoy yourself.
Exactly.
So hopefully me and all the coaches who are down there, it's been coming forever, make y'all's experience great, because that's what we're there for. I'm not above you. You're not above me. I'm a human being, and that's the way I've always been. I don't think I'm on the pedestal because I played Major League Baseball. I just want to get down there and show you the locker room style and everything we've always done and get on the field and try to teach you some things. Yeah. And that's what we do. So I appreciate you having me. Yeah. Anybody listen, I wish to see you hopefully in January. Come back. We had a great time, and, we enjoy our draft and we take it serious and we have a good time doing it. Just show your skills early. or don't, and just tell everybody what your skills are, because we all know everyone says, don't go hard today. Don't go hard today. We saw you the other day. We're going to try to work something out here. That's right.
Anyway, Mac, we definitely appreciate you, and maybe once this season pick comes up, we'll maybe have you on another episode of the Grape Session. We'll talk about what's going on the game.
Sounds great, guys. Good luck in New York. I know it's hit y'all rough.
Yeah.
Alabama's not quite as bad, and I know a lot of guys are up there and having to stay home, and I'm sorry I get to go play golf or get to go do some things outside.
Jeez, only
we don't have quite as many people here in Alabama as y'all have in New York. So stay safe and be safe so we can see you in January.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Mac.
You're welcome.
Well, that's all we have for today. I want to thank my guest, Mackey Sasser, for coming on the Gripe Session podcast. Now, if there's somebody you'd like to have come on this podcast, do me a favor, send me an email at george@searchstatenisland.com. Let me know what you think or who you'd like to potentially say, and we'll do what we can to try to get them on. And hopefully you and your families that are out there are staying safe during this unbelievably trying time. I know everybody wants to get kind of back to normal, and hopefully this podcast is at least getting you to smile a little bit and bringing you some sort of value. So, as always, do something nice for somebody you wouldn't normally do. I hope everybody's out there staying safe, and we'll catch you on the next edition of the Gripe Session.
Thanks for listening to the Gripe Session. Please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.